Hello and welcome to another video. I'm Everett Hoffman, and today we're going to talk about bokeh. What is bokeh, how do we get the bokeh effect, and some tips and tricks to help us along the way. So first things first, how do you pronounce bokeh? Google says it's pronounced bokeh in America. I pronounce it as bokeh, and other people have said it as BOKEH. So I guess just say it however you want. As long as you're close to the right pronunciation, I'm pretty sure people are going to understand what you're saying. Okay, so now that the pronunciation bullshit's out of the way, what is bokeh? Bokeh is the effect of an out of focus background. So all that's saying is it's a blurry background or a blurry image that's aesthetically pleasing. So bokeh could look like this, where there's obvious lights in the background that are out of focus and it looks blurry. Or it could even look like this, where there's light leaks in the background, but that entire background is blurry. Or if you're shooting a video, your bokeh could look like this. So the possibilities of bokeh are endless. They even have filters that you can attach to your lens or to your camera that can change the shape of your bokeh. They have them where you can change it into the shape of a heart, or you can make your circles turn into ovals, and so on and so forth. The possibilities are limitless. So now that we know what bokeh looks like, how do we get that effect in camera? And that's actually a lot easier than you would think. All you have to do is focus on your subject in the foreground, and that will make your background appear blurry. Now, you do have to have a decent amount of distance between your foreground and your background. For example, I am too close to the wall behind me for me to be able to get my background blurry. And that's because there isn't enough space between me and the wall for there to be a substantial difference in focus. But that's okay because I'm not going for a bokeh effect with this camera setup. If I were going for a bokeh effect, I would make sure that there's more distance between me and my background so I could get my background a little bit more blurry. So this is what it would look like if I were to separate myself from my background. So I have created more distance between me and my background wall, so now my background will appear to be blurry. Step 2. Your f-stop or aperture matters. If you want to learn more about aperture, I have a video all about aperture. I'll go ahead and put the link to that video in the description below, and I'll put it in the top right here. So if you're shooting at an f8 or an f11 or higher, then you're going to have a greater depth of field, and that's not going to give you a blurry background. If you want to get the bokeh effect, then you're going to have to shoot at a lower aperture. For example, with my current setup, I'm shooting at an f8. Now that's not going to give me the depth of field to make my background blurry. If I wanted to make my background blurry, I would have to shoot at a lower aperture. So this is what it looks like with me separated from my background with my aperture set to 8. Now let's see what it would look like with my aperture set at 2. So this is what it looks like with my aperture set at 2. And as you can see, the background is a little bit more blurry, and we have a little bit more of that bokeh effect. Okay, so now that we've covered the fundamentals and you've separated yourself from the background and you've lowered your aperture to your liking, all we have to do now is not mess it up by shooting on a plain background. As you can see, I removed the lamp that was in my background to show you what a plain wall looks like. Now this is something that we don't want to do when we're shooting bokeh. The whole point of bokeh is to have those blurry lights in the background. So you can accomplish this by adding a lamp back there, or you can add something like Christmas lights or fairy lights back there and turn those on and make those out of focus to give you some depth and to add interest to your frame. So this is what it looks like with me separated from my background with my aperture set at 2, and I also added the fairy lights in the background. I didn't really need them for this setup, but I added them anyway because it filled in the negative spaces and it makes the bokeh effect a little bit more prominent. So those are the 3 basic steps to give you the bokeh effect. Now I do have one last side note, and that is the lens that you're using. Different lenses will give you different looking bokeh, and that's because each lens handles light differently on the amount of glass that it passes through and the curvature of the glass and the color of the glass and all of that. So just know that when you're doing your bokeh, bokeh may look different from lens to lens. So that's all I got for this one. I hope I was able to shed some light on how to achieve this effect. I think you'll agree that it's a pretty simple technique that can yield some great looking results. If you have any questions about bokeh, let me know in the comments below. As always, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Skiddly bop that bell to be notified when I post another video. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one.